We had bets riding on this and it didn't take long.
No, it didn't take long at all.
You might be wondering who this handsome chap is.
Yeah, that's very kind.
Yep. He wrote this. This is
did.
Rob, our executive producer. We're about to make his childhood dream come true. He is absolutely nuts, bananas
Have
for
not slept
Doctor
all night.
Who. And he's going to get to talk to his favourite Doctor Who, Peter Davison.
I'm completely indulging here. I have to be honest.
You totally are, but when you're the boss,
it
you
has been
can.
mentioned on social media that I'm indulging, and I am.
But whatevs. What do you think makes Doctor Who fans so nutso?
You know what?
No offence.
Well, I am nutso. I had a TARDIS built for crying out loud. No, I'll tell you what it is. It is a show that captures your imagination. People become fanatical about shows, but there is something about Doctor Who and to some extent Star Trek and other shows like that. Look in the audience. People come in outfits and get dressed up and do cosplay. But someone like me growing up, it was an escape, you know, growing up at home, it was an escape to another world. The idea of the TARDIS itself, just the idea of travelling through time and space, bigger on the inside, it's an amazing adventure.
Alrighty. Now, the moment
Too
has
much?
arrived. No, not at all. You might convince me to watch it. The big moment has arrived. It is time to call the Doctor. Peter Davison played the 5th incarnation of the Time Lord from 1981 to 1984, and he has travelled across time and space to join us from London. Good morning, Peter.
Good morning. How are you?
We're wonderful. Now, we're doing this a little bit differently this morning. I actually have my boss, Rob, sitting next to me. He is probably your biggest fan.
You are my doctor, Peter.
Right. Thank you.
You've made him nervous and very awkward now.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. Hey, Peter, you played many characters during your very successful career, but was Doctor Who the defining moment?
I'm not sure if it was the defining moment. It certainly is the part that stayed with me the longest. You know, I'm still the 5th Doctor, and here we are, 50 years on from the day it started. But yeah, it was. I was the first Doctor who grew up watching Doctor Who. So to me, I was being asked to play a childhood hero of mine. So it was very important. But unfortunately, as an actor, you just judge parts on, how good the script is. And I've been very fortunate to do a lot of very good scripts and some fun series. So in a way, I first became known as Tristan in All Creatures Great and Small. And in some ways, I still think people think of me as Tristan playing the Doctor.
Do you have any regrets, Peter, about leaving the show after just 3 years?
No, not really. I think you make your decision. I thought long and hard about it. I'd been given a piece of advice by Patrick Troughton, who said essentially do it for 3 years, then get out. I'd done All Creatures for 3 years, so I thought it was time to move on. I have to say, though, that's a very different decision than the experience that you have that final day in the studio when you see some other imposter in your costume sit up and suddenly they are the Doctor and you are sent packing. That is a really tough day. It's a really tough emotional day because although you wouldn't change your mind about doing it, I think some deep subconscious part of you thinks they can't possibly get anyone to replace me, surely.
Well, some might say it wasn't that successful when they did. You were there at the 20th anniversary. You were the current Doctor at the time. I remember waiting with anticipation for the VHS to be sent over from England when that happened. Does it blow your mind that it's now 30 years since that 20th anniversary and now we're ready for the big 50th anniversary?
Yes, I mean, firstly, I can't believe I'm that old, but it's obviously 50 is much more impressive than 20, and it's the hoo-ha around Doctor Who since it came back. Obviously, when I was in Doctor Who, it was a very, very successful programme. It was sold to 39 countries, I think, but it wasn't what you would call a prestigious BBC show. It wasn't their #1 show. And I think Doctor Who pretty much is. And so the celebrations are pretty spectacular. I walked into the studio tonight and there's a TARDIS inside the door and there's a loop of video running with all the Doctors in their various forms. It's pretty much a nationwide celebration here.
Well, as it should be, as it should be. It's not only a celebration over there, it's a celebration around the world. I'll be up early in the morning watching it live as it comes in. They're beaming it all around the world.
Yeah.
But let me ask you this. Tom Baker has already come out and said he is part of the 50th anniversary. Peter Davison, are you part of the anniversary?
Well, that depends on how you define part of the anniversary. I'm not part of the 50th anniversary, but there's a very important, many very important things that are going on around it. And if fans of the classic Doctors want to look out for stuff that's available after the 50th has gone out, they'll find the classic Doctors very much part of the scene. I think overall people will be very pleased. I don't quite know why Tom let that out of the bag. It was a bit of a silly thing to do, really.
Right, yeah, it probably was. But so are you categorically ruling out that you make any little appearance in the show?
Well, I'm not ruling out that my doctor appears in some form, but me in my present state, no, I'm not.
Good answer.
So I don't know what they... You know, they can do marvellous things with... They can do things with digital technology these days that you wouldn't believe. So it may be that I'm sure there'll be... that the classic Doctors will be featured in some form, just not us in our... It's a problem because, you know, we should look exactly as we did when we left the series.
Peter, obviously, I mean, I have my boss sitting here. He's a very devoted fan of Doctor Who. He even has a Doctor Who phone case. He's always banging on about it. These Doctor Who fans are very, very passionate. What do you think it is? Why do you think, after all these years, the show has such an incredible, passionate fan base?
Well, the reason it's gone on for so long is obviously partly because they came up with a brilliant idea of regeneration, which meant you can get different actors to play the part. But what it does do, Doctor Who, and Witness, your boss, is that it seems to inspire people with kind of creative minds, and they go up. And they become producers, and they become directors, and they become writers, and indeed actors, and they have ended up running the show. I mean, the reason the series came back was because Russell T Davies, a huge fan of Doctor Who, was asked by the BBC what he wanted to do next. And he could have chosen anything. He could have written something, he could have done anything. And he said, I want to bring back Doctor Who. And now the series is headed by Stephen Moffat, another huge fan of Doctor Who. You couldn't find a bigger fan of the classic series than Stephen. And so what's happening is it's self-perpetuating, it's self-sustaining. You know, every new generation, we seem to breed new writers, new creative people who will probably one day contribute to Doctor Who.
That's certainly true. I absolutely am in television because of Doctor Who. The booklets that showed how the show was made, I was the true fan. I was addicted to the show, and especially your portrayal of it. So now does it become a little bit surprising that your daughter has not only had involvement in Doctor Who, in the fact that she played the Doctor's daughter, and then she ended up marrying a doctor. She's, of course, married to David Tennant.
Yeah, she did pretty well for herself, really. Yeah, it's, you know, I always think that the reason that the relationship blossomed was because I think David, being the Doctor, you know, was surrounded by people who were very nervous of being in his presence, because it is almost like instant charisma. And Georgia, because her father had been the Doctor, was almost utterly unimpressed by the fact that he was David Tennant, the Doctor. And I think that kind of appealed to him.
Peter, what is your fondest memory of the show? If you can narrow it down to just one.
Oh, heavens. Oh, I don't know if I can narrow it down to just one, really. I mean, I was so pleased that when I left, I went out with, I think it was actually voted the best Doctor Who story ever a couple of years ago, which was Caves of Androzani, which is my sort of... where everything sort of came together. We had a great cast, and we had a great writer, and we had a great director in Graham Harper, and it was a great way to leave the show. It wasn't an anticlimax. I did turn into Colin Baker, actually. That wasn't so good, but apart from that, it was a pretty good way to go out. It just... You know, I still see the people who played my companions, and we're great friends. And it's I think even the other doctors, we've all sort of bonded together in the course of years of conventions and sort of appearances. So it is like a kind of family. It sounds a bit silly to say that, but it is sort of, yeah.
When you first left the show, did you really want some distance between the character and yourself? And now, with the passing of time, are you really embracing it again and loving that time you were the Doctor?
I was really quite fortunate. I got a job, I think, only about a couple of weeks after I left Doctor Who. And so I never felt the need to put a distance between myself and the show. I think that's something that happens if you have a problem getting other work, to be blunt. And I was very soon doing another show for the BBC, and that led to another show for the BBC. So I never had a problem. I didn't feel the need to do it. So I've always been very closely associated with Doctor Who, and never really. I mean, I was a big fan of it. I didn't know quite as much as the likes of Stephen Moffat and David Tennant, I have to say, who's a fantastic fan of Doctor Who. But nevertheless, I grew up watching it and loved it. So I didn't really want to turn my back on it, and I didn't feel the need to.
I'm very pleased to hear that, because I certainly wouldn't have wanted you to turn your back on it. Finally, before we let you go, because I keep going on, what was the funniest or weirdest moment you ever experienced during the shooting of the show?
Yeah, well, I don't know, if I'd had time travel, it would be being shot by the next Doctor. I think it happened in one of my stories by Colin Baker, who had he was in what else? I did play a prank once. I did play a prank once when, just for a joke, I dressed up as Tegan, one of my companions, and went on the set. And it took them about 5 minutes before they realised it wasn't her.
Oh, no.
I think there's some great moments.
Sarah's wondering who Tegan is.
They also did try and kill me once by putting me in a booth. And
telling me this.
Yeah. Exactly. Yes. You know why she was Australian?
No, go on.
I'll tell you why she was Australian. Because John Nathan Turner, the producer, was desperately hoping to film an episode in Australia, and he thought if he made her an air stewardess for a certain airline, they would offer to fly us over for free. Didn't work.
He is a fascinating man in his own right, and what he did with Doctor Who during those years was fascinating. But Peter, it has been a fanboy's dream talking to you today. Thank you so much for joining us.
He has not slept all night. He's been busting out of himself to sit here and talk to you. You have made my boss's life. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much indeed. Nice to talk to you.
And that is why he was the best Doctor.
He's a little bit sexy, isn't he?
That wasn't really where I was coming from. But I
love that the biggest laughs, the nerdiest laughs came from that side of the audience, where we've got all the Doctor Who dress-ups going on. I love it.